right? I think that's our cue. Door's closed. Can't escape anymore. Perfect. Wow, almost a full room. I didn't expect that. Maybe I should have taken this more seriously then. Yeah. All right. So here's a quick history of that talk, actually. It's kind of a funny thing. I originally wrote the abstract for this presentation about 2 years ago. And I kind of forgot about it and submitted it a few times, and then they accepted it at this conference. I'm very, very happy about that. But then I realized that most of the browser APIs that were there, or new APIs 2 years ago, are probably not new anymore. So 2 weeks ago, I decided to rewrite the whole talk, include a bunch of demos, and we all know how demos work at conferences. So get ready for a lot of deception. But yeah, so we're going to explore a few of the browser APIs, some of the new stuff, mostly some of the stuff that is in there, part of your browser, but maybe you don't know about it. I'll have a lot of interactive demos if you want to give it a try. And just a warning, out of curiosity, who uses an iPhone? Ooh. No, because some of the demos don't work. About a third of the room. Who's on Android? Good. Not that I judge. No, just I gave it a try on a iOS browser, or Chrome on iOS, just before I left home. And some of the demos weren't working. I tried to tweak them, but I wasn't able to test them again. But anyways, let's get started with this. So very quickly, let me introduce myself. Hi, I'm Joel. I came all the way from Toronto, Canada. I'm actually French-Canadian, so that's the charming little accent that you'll notice. I work as a developer advocate at Red Hat OpenShift. So that's a Kubernetes platform that was designed by Red Hat, although I'm not really going to talk about that today. But I've deployed my application on it, and we will see if it's a good platform or not. I'm also co-organizer for Nomad.js, which is a user group. We meet once a month online, so we have very good presentations there. So take a look at nomadjs.com. And if you ever want to get a hold of me, Twitter is always the best way. Like, I really, really love Twitter. So that's Joel with, that's 2 underscores there. It's a really shitty handle. But so Joel with 2 underscores. I get very excited whenever I have Twitter notifications. And of course, you don't want to miss GIFs of myself, right? So all right. So you can take a look at that later. So that's now. I'll take your phones out, and you can point your browser to easy URL to /browser what? Browser what? What? Yeah, and this should, in theory, push the demos on your phone, so you'll be able to kind of interact with some of the APIs and see how those work. So I'll leave it there for a second, just so that you can actually punch it in. And I'll give you a warning every time you need to pull out your phone and take a look at what's coming up. All right, good. I see people still typing. Should I use a QR code for that? Who uses QR codes? Oh, same people that use iOS? No, I might add one for the next time. Anyways. Are we good with the URL? Okay. It's going to be repeated at some places. The first one I wanted to talk to you about, and that's, although not technically a browser API, but I'll be using WebSockets a lot for this presentation, and I wanted to quickly introduce it. WebSockets are amazing. And I gave a talk about WebSockets. I believe I did it here as well, like 3 years ago. And still nobody uses them, which is just sad. So WebSockets are a great way to get real-time communication with your API. So it'll open a full duplex communication channel between a server and your browser. So you can send messages without doing that full cycle and that full request, and you can actually push some information to the connected devices on your server. So it makes it very useful for anytime that you need to do something real time, anytime you need to push some things to your browsers, to your clients that are connected, or in this case, to everybody that is connected to the application, and we're looking for a demo. So I'll be using WebSockets to push that to your phone. There are a few libraries that can be used if you want to connect or to use WebSockets. If you're doing PHP, there's a library called Ratchet, I believe, which helps with that. I'm not as familiar with PHP, though, unfortunately, so I'm using Node.js here. and I'm using a library called socket.io. So you can just run an npm install socket.io, and it will actually work out very well with your Express server if you have one running. So what I'll do here is that I'll create my HTTP server, just like you would for any server on Node.js, and then you'll define another, or you'll just attach your socket.io library to the HTTP server that you've just created. By doing so, it will take care of connecting or creating all the sockets on the server side, and it will also serve a library on the client. And then you can just start your server as you would normally do. Once you have that, it will create that /socketio/socketio.js file, and if you request it on your clients, they'll be able to get that socket.io client library, and then they'll be able to use WebSockets inside their application. So in this case, I'm just declaring a socket by using IO. And now that I have my socket either on the client or the server, so the syntax is exactly the same, I can use socket.onConnect, so I can verify if the user got connected to the actual socket. And then I can use the method emit to send a message and to broadcast that message on that socket. So by using socket.emit. And then I can also listen for events. And if you notice, my socket.emit, the first one had a title, so I'm sending a message here, and then I'm sending the data. And now I'm listening for events going on the message channel. And whenever there's a message that comes in, like the hello world in the previous example, then I can alert that message or do whatever things that I want to do with that message that I just got. So now it's time for your first demo. So take out your phone at this address, and if your phone is unlocked, you should see something on your phone. Maybe. Some people. Okay, let's try it again. Maybe 5 seconds was not enough, so I'll just let it go down. I'll also open my browser so I can check it. Come on, does anyone has it? Well, just wait. Okay, well, we've got some that are working. Cool, we've got quite a few. Yeah, I'm surprised we haven't seen any poop emojis yet. What's wrong? Come on. I haven't seen a script tag either. Oh, I saw the poop emoji right there. Yeah, script alert. Yeah, all right. Woohoo! Got a big one there. Okay, so that's what WebSockets do. So as you can see, it makes it very easy. So the typical hello world that you will see using WebSockets is always a chat application, because that's very convenient for that. But it's really meant to push messages, and so that anybody that is connected to it can listen to messages, or they can receive messages that are pushed from the server. So very useful for things like this actual talk. Can you use WebSockets? This is our current support for WebSockets. They can actually be used natively as well. Socket.io makes it a little bit more easy, just because it's the same syntax on both the server and the client. But you can use them natively on pretty much every browser since IE 11. Most modern browsers will support it, so feel free to use it. It's a fun thing to play with. So I definitely strongly encourage you to use it. All right. But this is supposed to be a talk about the web APIs in our browser, and that's not one of them. Fine, I get it. Let's do something else. All right, the first one that I wanted the real browser API that I want to introduce is the notification API. So the notification API will alert users outside of the page. So we'll send you a notification in your drawer and on your phone. Not to be confused with push notifications, so they won't work if your user is not connected to the website, or if the web page is not open. But so push notifications will do that, but they're a little bit harder to implement. But if you want to push or give notifications to the user while they're looking at your web page, say you have an application that pushes demo to a bunch of people in the room, and you want to give them a warning by using a notification, that's perfect for that very specific case. It will require the user permissions, thank God. So you have to actually do a user-initiated action in order to receive notifications. So you'll have to click on a button, and then the browser will ask you, do you want to receive notifications or not? And then we always say block, but for the sake of this demo, you're going to say allow, of course. And then you'll be able to receive those notifications. Also, that's a safe way to actually test it for the first time, because I always click block until I actually tested like my own code at one point. So if you want to give it a try, that's a great time. There's an object called notification that you can use in most modern browsers now. So notification.requestPermission is the way to request that permission. So you'll need to do that inside a user-initiated action. So like on a button click, for example. And then you'll be able to verify the user permission. So if the user did grant permission, then notification.permission will be granted or denied if the user denied it. And then if they accepted it, then you can display, and if they didn't accept it, it'll just give you an error if you just try to push a notification. So that's why we do the check here. And then you can just create a new notification object, and it will actually give that notification to the users. You can put just a single line, just a simple message, or you can use a little bit more complex notifications. You can have a small title text, a very large body, icons. There's a bunch of different things that you can add through notifications. Now, not every browser will display them the same way. So that's the tricky part about using those extended messages. But in general, they still work, at least to a certain degree. Mobile devices, it took me quite a while to figure it out. It was a little bit harder to get to work. So on desktop, those work really well. On a mobile device, you need to register a service worker. And in this case, I'm just registering a service worker in /slave/sw.js file. And that file is actually an empty file. It doesn't even need to do anything, but you just need to register a service worker, and that service worker will be able to push those notifications afterwards. So by using that registration.show notification, and you can use the same type of API as notification, but for mobile devices, you need to use that service worker. All right, so let's see if we can get this to work. Got to be faster. Got 5 seconds. All right, so now on your phone, you should have a button that says listen for notifications. I didn't open mine, so I don't see it. All right, why is it? Okay, yeah. How's that? Is it working? Okay, so listen for notification. It should already give you a notification if that works, or it should ask you for permission. If you allow, it should already give you a notification. Now that you've allowed them, if I click on show notification, I'll push a notification to your phones. Oh, I've heard at least one. So you should have received that little message that says, I don't know, what does it say? This is a notification. How clever. If you want to send more complex messages, it's like I said, you use the JSON object. In this case, you can specify an icon, a larger message. So this is a more complex notification that you'll receive. It has a full body, the icon, so a bunch of different things. It actually works. Yeah. Surprised. Okay. All right, cool. So now you should receive a notification 5 seconds before any demo. So that'll help. So can you use notifications? Let's take a look at the support right now. It is mostly supported, doesn't work on iOS. So that's one of the ones that didn't work. But most modern browsers, Chrome, Firefox, and Edge will support notifications. IE doesn't support those notifications. Okay. Oh, that's annoying. All right. Yeah. Not impressive. You've seen them. Okay. All right. I'll try to find something more fun then. Geolocation API. You've seen it, but have you seen it in action? Let's take a look at what this looks like. So geolocation, there's a few things that you can do with the API. You can actually return the position of the user. It will return you coordinates in latitude and longitude. Or you can track movement of a person. So you can ask for tracking, and then whenever they move or it detects that it moved far enough and the coordinates change, it will send you an event with the new coordinates. One of the issues that I had when I tried to test it on mobile devices, it requires an HTTPS connection. So if you try to test it on localhost, you might run into that issue. So you might need an HTTPS connection in order to be able to test the geolocation API. It has been implemented for quite a while now in most browsers, and you can just check if the geolocation object is part of your navigator, a top-level object, and then if it doesn't, then you can send an error message or just ignore it. To get the position of the user, navigator.geolocation.getCurrentPosition will return you the position of the user, and it will return the coordinates in there, so you can display the latitude as well as the longitude of the user. If you want to track movement, which is the most interesting thing about that, you can declare this watch ID, and then you can use the watch position API, and that will send you or trigger that event whenever there is a change in the position of the user. And it will also send you the coordinates in the same format that it did before. If you want to stop watching that user, you can use clear watch and just pass it that watch ID. I like that. Okay. All right. So you should get something a little bit like this. It should give you the location. Well, actually, you'll have to give it permission first. And it will ask you the permission. Also, a user-enabled initiated action. And it will then give you the permission, the coordinates. Not much you can do with latitude, longitude, but oh, looks like I'm in München. München. Yeah. Oh, that gets interesting. That's like, you can almost see that the windows are closed, like they're right here. Okay, so latitude, longitude, not very useful by themselves, but you can obviously use Google's APIs and make use of that. So they'll do some reverse geolocation stuff to provide you the name of the city or an image of where you are, or you can put that on a map and start tracking the user. So you can do a lot of different things with that. You can even start doing some geofencing and with tracking the position and so on. So let's take a look at the support for that. Browser support. Pretty much everything supports it, and it's been there for quite a while now. Can be useful for a bunch of different things. It's used for ads targeting, of course, but many different little things that you can use it for. Supported all browsers, so go ahead, feel free to use it as much as you want. All right, been there, done that. You've all seen it all before. Let's take a look at something new then. Page visibility. This is one of the APIs that I did not know about, and I was kind of curious when I saw this for the first time. So page visibility will tell you if a document is in display or not. So it will tell you if the user is actually looking at the page or if it's hidden in one of the browsers that he's not looking at. It can be very useful to pause different interactions. So if you're playing a movie, for example, and the user switches to another tab, or if you want to force them to watch that ad before they move on to the next step, as soon as they get out of your page, then you can pause the video. When they come back, they'll have to watch the end of it. So it can be very useful for this type of things. It's actually very easy to use. There's a document.visibilityState property to your document that is available out there, and it will return you visible, hidden, pre-render, or unloaded. So it will tell you in what state this current document is, and you can do that to do various things with. Pre-rendering can be useful to display an image while you're pre-rendering the page, and visible or hidden, as I've already mentioned. There's also a visibility change event that you can track. So you can add an event listener, and if the user switched to another page, that's where you would pause that video or start it back when the user comes back. So if you take a look at this, that's actually kind of a hard demo to display on the mobile devices. But if you scroll down to switch to another tab, you might see the title of the window, and it will change to something like hidden. Okay, it's kind of hard to see. But I have it here. You see that I have a timer that's running. So it's 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. And then I can just switch to another page. And you'll notice that the title of my page changed to paused. So I've used that event, visibility change, to change the title of my page. And I also stopped the timer that was there. So if I go back, I start back at 20, and the countdown continues. So I was able to pause that interaction until the user came back. So you can do different things like that. Support. Support most browsers. Yeah, and it's very easy to use. So if you ever need something like that, feel free. Go ahead, use it. It's very stable and works on most browsers. All right, you're here to see some fun stuff, cool stuff, right? That wasn't that impressive. It's useful, but not impressive. All right, Speech API. That's fun. Speech API will let you do in-browser text-to-speech, so you can use multiple voices, different languages. support in Firefox is somewhat experimental, as it is in iOS. But we'll see it on Chrome. I'll actually show it on Firefox as well. The first thing that you'll need to do is to create an utterance. So you will create a new speech. You'll give it a string to be spoken. And then you can specify a rate and a pitch to adjust the voice a little bit. And then you will use the speech synthesis object. You'll create a new one, and you'll just pass it that utterance that you've just created. And it will start speaking by using the speak method. One little tricky thing here, if you want to play with them, you need to specify a voice, and it takes some time before your browser can actually load the different voices that are available to the API. So there is an onVoiceChange event here that you can use, and you will need to track that onVoiceChange in order to load all of the voices, and then you'll be able to get one of them. And then you can select whichever you want. I'll actually show some different voices. You'll have them on your phone too. So your browser will come with a bunch of pre-populated voices that you can use, but you need to make sure that they're actually loaded before you can use them. All right, let's look at this one. Oh, will I be fast enough? Whew, got it. All right. You guys are too loud. I'm going to increase the volume. This is an interesting one. So that's the French voice. So it's actually interesting because it speaks in English, but it uses a French-Canadian accent, or a French accent. That's the German voice. I thought that was cool. All right. I've got to demo Firefox. Yeah. Yeah, not as good. So, can you what? Canadian. Yeah, so Firefox, not as good. But definitely, Chrome is doing a very good job. I really like how it does the accents. That's great. It's just great. And some of you have tested it. So you can see the list of different voices that are available. For some reason, it will populate with a bunch of different voices. A lot of them are similar or exactly the same. So it's kind of a little bit tricky. Also, if you want to rely on it, you'll want to make sure that your users actually have a browser that does a good job at rendering that speech, or doing that text-to-speech processing. And not all browsers can do a decent job at it, as we've just seen. As for support, let's take a look at this. So supported main modern browsers, but like I said, they say it's supported in Firefox. I'd argue that it's, well, kind of supported. It's not a full support. iOS is somewhere over there. It should work, but I haven't been able to make it work. So I did some changes. I don't know if anyone on iOS was able to make it work. So it was a little bit harder to get it to work on iOS, but in theory, it should be working, or it should be supported. All right, that's fun. Will they show anything practical? Probably not, but... All right, online, offline status. That's something that we always need to know, especially in a world where we do more progressive web apps and things that are doing online, offline. How can you, if you have a chat application, and then how can you track or send the messages once the user finally gets connected? So there's an API to help you with that. Very useful. Like I said, it'll tell you if the user is online or not. Yeah, and it just includes different events in the window object. So navigator.online, very easy to use, will return either online or offline. So very easy to use. No, actually, it will return a Boolean, I'm sorry, and then you can display whether the user is online or offline. The events that you can use, window.online, so whenever the user gets or just connects to the application or connects to the internet after he lost it for a while, or window.onOffline, to show you when the user loses connection. So it can be used to display different things or to start caching some information that you want to send later on. So you can use that to control whether the user is connected or not. Now, internet connection status online. It's online for me. I don't want to risk my internet connection at this point. But if you take your phone and you put it on airplane mode, you should see that big online indicator switch to offline. Did it work? I see some face, some nodding. Okay. So yeah, so it should work. And if you reconnect back from offline mode or back from airplane mode, it should show you online again. It'll take a few seconds just to update. So yeah, so it works. It's very, very simple to use. Once again, widely used in most browsers, widely supported in most browsers. Okay, so I didn't want to push my luck on the internet connection. So widely supported, definitely available for most users. So go ahead, use that one, so you can do different things based on the internet connectivity of your users. All right, that was good, wasn't it? So might have something else useful here. Well, kind of. More fun than useful again. Device orientation. That was quite interesting for me to discover that it's relatively well supported. It'll provide you the device orientation, and it will give you coordinates on the 3 different axes, alpha, beta, and gamma. And if you do some maths, you can figure out some things like, is it currently in portrait mode or landscape mode? There's a few things that you can do with that. There's also an on-device orientation event. So whenever the device orientation will change, it will actually trigger that event, so you can see those 3 different coordinates here. There's also an on-device motion, which will give you the acceleration in each one of the directions on the X, Y, and Z axis. So you can detect the actual movement instead of just the acceleration instead of the actual movement. So the first derivative of the acceleration is, maths. Let's take a look at what it looks like. All right, so on your phone, you should have a little ball, and you should be able to move it. I wasn't able to make it work with iOS, unfortunately. Not as supported on the iOS devices. Android should be working, though. And if I have this here, ooh, got a message. Oh, there's a new printer. And that's an interesting, that's part of your console tools. You can enable them. There's a flag on Chrome. And you can override some of the sensors that would normally be on a phone. So you can do stuff like the geolocation. So you can override the property with different latitude and longitude. Or you can override the properties for the orientation of your device. So I can actually change my device, and I'm changing the image based on the current position of my device. Or you can do some fun stuff like the little ball on the screen. So you can actually do different things based on the position of your browser. There you go. As for support, not very supported. Like I said, iOS is supposed to be supported. I was not able to make it work. Edge, Firefox, and Chrome, they all work, but then they're all desktop browsers, so it's not very useful because it doesn't track the position of your laptop. So pretty much the only one that works is Android, Chrome on Android. So probably don't use it for production, but there's definitely some fun stuff that you can do if you can force the device type on your users. All right. So when I saw that, I was like, is there any other mobile sensors or different things that I can use in my mobile? And of course there is. VIBRATE API. It's like so annoying. Don't abuse it, or just don't use it at all. Like, please. But it's kind of fun. If you need to provide some tactile feedback or some sort of haptic feedback to your users, it could be useful. Really, I can't think of a very good use case for it, but If you need to, you can check for the presence of the vibrate property of your navigator object. And if it is, you can pass it a value, and it will vibrate for the number of milliseconds that you pass it. You can stop it by passing it a 0. Or you can use an array and vibrate for a few milliseconds and pause for a few milliseconds. And guess what your devil will be? All right, so of course I can't do anything on the desktop once again, so that's only supported on mobile devices. I've tweaked it. iOS, does it work? Oh, that's too bad. So it should work on Android though. So you should have a start and stop button. So if you start it, it'll start vibrating. So it'll do the Imperial March, like the Darth Vader thing. See what you're missing on by having an iPhone? Yeah, so you can do fun stuff with that. So it's random, like it'll give you the Imperial March, Super Mario, James Bond, the SOS, like Morse code. A few fun things there. What about support? I've already hinted at it. I think it's officially supported by iOS. No, it's not even officially supported. So supported by Firefox and Chrome, once again, but so what? It's not like my laptop's going to vibrate. But Android on Chrome on Android will work, and the Android browser will work as well. So some of them will start supporting. I'm not really sure I want all browsers to support that, to be honest, but yeah, but it's there. It's there to play with. All right. That was an interesting one as well. I've learned that you can use the Clipboard API. So you can actually copy and paste some stuff by using your browser APIs. Very useful if you want to share snippets of code. You might have seen that on some websites. I know that Auth0 has that as part of their documentation. So you'll have a snippet of code, and there's a button that you can click on. It will copy to your clipboard. And then you can paste it in your IDE, because that's all we do, copy and paste code, right? Pasting will not work in all of the browsers, which is actually a very good thing, because the paste functionality in Chrome will paste whatever is in your clipboard. But oftentimes, I use a password manager, and I'll copy my password from a password manager. So if somebody had access to that paste function, he could actually snatch my password there. So it's not supported in all browsers. Kind of an experimental state at the moment. They're playing with it. Some browsers will ask you for permissions before you can paste some stuff. But you can use them on some browsers. You can do text or binary objects, and they need to be triggered by a user-initiated event, though. So you can use navigator.clipboard.writeText to copy some text. It's a promise-based API, so you'll have a then event, which will tell you if you have a success or an error, and you can catch it as the error is there. And then you can do navigator.clipboard.readText to actually paste something. So you'll be able to get something out of the clipboard, and you can do whatever you want with that. So in this case of this demo, we're going to just put it in an input box. So let's take a look at this one. You should have something similar on your in your browser, in your mobile device. Oh, that is small. All right, there it is. So you have a text box here, and I can just change this text to something else. I can copy it to my clipboard, and then I can paste that value and just put it back into that input box, input text box. So very useful for copy and pasting. But like I said, there's a bit of a security issue here, so you have to kind of be careful about how you're going to use that. Unless you want to snatch people's password, then that's a very good API to use. So, but it's not fully supported yet. So probably not all the people managed to get it to work. We'll take a look at the support here. It's a little bit more supported on browser APIs, on browser APIs, yeah, on desktop browser. But all the implementations are very different. That's why they're in yellow here. So Firefox is a little bit different than Chrome, and they all have their little things and little adjustments that you need to do. So kind of hard to use. Probably not production ready. The copy part is good, so you can definitely use that. As I mentioned earlier, if you're using documentation and you want to have, again, you have those little blocks or little snippets of code, having that little copy button is very useful, very practical. That can be used, but the paste part is not fully working yet. Well, it was somewhat useful, wasn't it? Okay. Get user media. Also a fun one. Get user media will give you access to a user's microphone or camera. So it will provide you with a stream of information that you can use either with a canvas or different things, and then you can manipulate a video or the sound that you receive. We'll look at the audio API afterwards, but we'll take a look at the video here. So if you can use navigator.mediadevices.getUserMedia, and you'll specify what you want to get. So in my case, I'll specify I want the video, so you set video to true. It's a promise-based API, so you can use then. You have your media stream, and you can pass that media stream as a source object to a video tag that you have on your HTML page. So you can use your source object, media equals the media stream, and then whenever that media is loaded, you can start displaying that video. So it'll actually display in a video tag the content of your webcam. You can do the same type of thing for audio. You'll just need to specify audio true instead of video true in this case. And once you have that user media, then you can put that into a video object on your HTML page, just like I did here. But what I do here is that I'm actually using a canvas. And I'll create a canvas context, and then you can display the image of your webcam inside a canvas. The nice thing about using a canvas is that you can actually now edit that image and do different things on it. So you can put filters on your videos and do different things like that. So, time for a new demo. There you go. Oh, there's a lot of inception. There's a picture of me inside me, inside me, inside me in the back end. That's cool. On your phone now, you should have that video. Once again, iOS. I'm sorry. If you have an Android, though, it should show your picture. You should have a few buttons at the bottom, so you'll be able to actually put a filter on it. Creating those filters are relatively simple. I share the slides and the source code at the end if you want to take a look. But it's relatively simple. You just take each one of the pixels and then put them in black and white, or change the colors, invert them, do different things like that. That's actually what I do here. So this is the video tag that I have, and the one in the background is actually a canvas that I just used to enlarge the image, so I display the video inside the canvas here. Oh, some people are disappointed I switched it. So how about support? Actually very well supported. So most major browsers, once again, modern browsers pretty much all support get user media. So it's very easy to use. And kind of easy to use when you're manipulating the image with a canvas. Web Audio API. That's another fun one. You can take an audio stream and manipulate it, and then you can modulate it by using the sound with different oscillators. My brother is actually a sound engineer. I understand absolutely nothing about that. But I'm still going to show you a demo. He thinks it's fascinating. I think it's like, oh, okay, it's fine. So you can take an audio context, and then you'll append different objects on it. So there's a few objects or a few transformation thingies that you can add to your audio context. In this case, I'm going to use an oscillator as well as a gain modulator. So I'll be able to, the gain will change the volume, and the oscillator will change the frequency of the sound or the shape of the sound wave. As you can see, I am not a sound engineer. You can change the frequency by using frequency.value, change the gain by using the gain node.gain.value, and let's see what this looks like. All right, so I have those. It's so annoying. So I have all the different notes here, and it's just a frequency, so that's how sound will work. It'll create a wave, and based on the frequency of the wave, I knew that was going to be annoying. I didn't realize it was that much. And you can change the form. You can change the form of the waves as well. All right, stop it. Stop it. Done. All right, as for browser support, I skipped it. It's widely supported, actually, so you can definitely use that. You could use the user media to also use that and modulate the sound that you get from the microphone. So you could put some effects on the voice of the users that are connected if they want to use it, and different things like that. So a lot of fun stuff that you can do with that. GamePad API, another interesting one. So you can actually get control of a USB-connected GamePad and interact with it. Great for games, or if you want to do like navigation, like fun navigation in your application. The one thing, though, is that it'll provide you with a GamePad object. That GamePad object will have a bunch of different axes and buttons, and axes and buttons are very different based on the browser that you're using. And there's no real way to know how it maps to the buttons on your joystick or your GamePad. So it's a little bit hard to use, but it's still, the basics are very similar for all the browsers. So you have your event listener for GamePad connected. So there's an event in the window object that you can use. And once the GamePad is connected, you can actually have access to it. This will give you the GamePad information for that one GamePad that was just connected. You can have multiple ones, so you'll have an array of GamePads that are available. So if you have a game that you want to do, you'll have a game loop. You'll check for controls on GamePad 1, and you'll check if, in this case, I'm checking for button number 0, is it pressed in a pressed state or not. So it's constantly, or each time you trigger or you go through that loop, it will give you the state of the buttons. So yeah. And you'll set an interval and do that loop every 50 milliseconds in this case. So you all brought your GamePads? Yep. Good. I got one. All right, so I built a little game. So you have buttons on, because I still wanted it to be interactive. I figured nobody would bring a GamePad. And I'll try to, oops. There's way more things than when I tried it alone. Okay. All right. But you can kind of see the buttons on at the top there. So I've got the up, down, left, and right arrows. And boy, that's really poor CSS there. And I've got the A buttons and the B buttons. So you can see when I hit them, it gets colored on top. So that's how it works. So I'm using a game loop here to both move the little arrows there, as well as to track if a button was pressed or not. You still need to add some debouncing. Just make sure if you track the button pressed, you don't want to trigger it every 50 milliseconds. So you might want to debounce that to only trigger it every few seconds. So you'll put a state on it. But it's a fun API to use. Done. All right, can you use the GamePad API? Yes. Widely supported. Once again, 83% of the browsers will support it. Yeah, even mobile devices. I guess it would probably work with a Bluetooth GamePad. I'm guessing. I don't know. But widely supported. You can definitely use it. Sure, that was fun. All right. Last API that I wanted to show you today, Bluetooth API. The Bluetooth API is a very complex one to use, but it will let you connect to Bluetooth devices. It's a promise-based API. If you look at IJS 2016, I think I did a presentation. It might have been recorded. Every device is very, very different. So it's a little bit hard to play with, but if you know what you're connecting to, it's relatively easy to use. It's just a lot of boilerplate code to use. So it goes through all the steps that any Bluetooth connection will go through. So you'll need to request all devices that are available to you. You'll need to connect to a GATT server and then connect to the very specific server and get some of the services and get some of the characteristics. So the services are what is available on your Bluetooth thing. So if it's a thermometer, then it will tell you that you have like temperature services available, and characteristics will actually be the values that you'll want to track. Some of them will let you put events on them and track the value when they change. Some of them will just continually push you some values. So this is an example for a heart rate monitor, which goes a little bit off the screen. But I'm requesting for services of heart rate monitor at the top there, and I get this characteristic, and I can start notifications. So I'll have an event, and every time some value comes through it, I'll actually be notified, and I'll have my heart rate change event or function that I can trigger in this case. So if we take a look at this, because you all brought your Bluetooth devices, right? Well, I have one. So let's take a look at this. All right, let's bear this. All right, Any idea what that is? That's my heart rate monitor, which is connected at the moment. So if I told you I was going to run, you got to follow me. So you should see go up. And then when it gets in red, then I'm about to die. So I'll probably stop here. It shows you how out of shape I am. It should start going down anytime now. Let's see, that's not too bad. It's starting to slow down. Just an interesting little fact that I did a talk about Bluetooth very specifically, and I connected to the device at the beginning of my talk, like 5 minutes before. And it was kind of interesting because I would display the chart of my heart rate during the whole talk, and you would see at the beginning there was a high peak because I get nervous. Once the talk starts, like, it slows down. And when a demo fails, it goes up. And when I run, it goes very, very high. All right, it should normally be like 70. Okay. So can you use it? Once again, pretty much supported in most major modern browsers. Come on. Not Firefox, supported in Chrome. Opera will support it. Not mobile browsers yet. But it can be very, very useful for different things. A few years back, actually, we experimented with that to build a healthcare application. So it would use Bluetooth-enabled devices to send data to your doctor via the web, so you can have a web RTC communication and discuss, and he would be able to take some of the measurements by using those Bluetooth devices. So it can be very useful for a bunch of different things, not only showing my heart rate and running all over the place. Some deprecated APIs. So when I had this talk in mind originally, I wanted to put those in, but I've realized that they're not deprecated. Interestingly, the battery API was deprecated because of a security issue. So by using the battery API, people were able to track where you were. Some people are way smarter than I am. Like, I have no clue. But I think it was battery usage would be higher when you're somewhere inside and something. Anyways, they were able to track people. So they removed it from the browser APIs. Context menu enabled you to change the menu when you right-click. And nobody ever implemented it. Actually, there's an official API, but it was never really used. Ambient light was another interesting one that I tried to play with, but I wasn't able to get it in a satisfying, or I wasn't able to make it work in a satisfying way. But it's definitely where, so you can check if there's a lot of light or not a lot, and then you can adjust the brightness of your web page, for example. So, in summary, a lot of different APIs are available to you. So the ultimate goal eventually is to be able to build full application that will make full use of all the different sensors that are available in your device as a web page. So that's kind of where all the main browser are headed for. So they're trying to implement all of that. But most importantly, my goal was to let you explore a little bit some of the fun APIs that are there available to you. And I encourage you to just use them, have fun, and give them a try. There's a few resources that I'll leave you with. There's one link at the end that groups all of them, as well as my slides and my demos. So with that, thank you very much.